Hi YouTube, my name's Jeff and I'm the Visual Guy. I'm a big fan of Denzel Washington and probably my favourite film of his is The Equalizer. So I was really excited to hear that The Equalizer 2 is coming out very soon and I decided to concoct my own simple tribute. Using Tinkercad, I was able to redraw the film logo into something a little easier to work with and I created a 3D print file. And here's the 3D print. I think it came out quite well, but these tool marks bothered me a little. So a simple rub down with some sandpaper and a little car body filler smoothed things out nicely. I decided to cast this 3D print in metal using lost wax casting, and I needed to create a silicon mould. I made a simple box frame around the print, poured in some liquid silicon, then pulled out all the bubbles with my homemade vacuum chamber. 24 hours later and I had a nice crisp silicon mould. Now it was just a matter of melting some casting wax and pouring it in, but I found this often left air pockets. So I had a chat with fellow YouTuber Worldtraveler and he gave me these useful tips. To begin with, warm the mould with a hairdryer. Pour in the wax, swill it around for a few seconds, then pour the wax out again. Give it a couple of minutes and repeat the process. This builds up the wax in thin layers and avoids issues associated with shrinking. Once the bulk of the details were filled in, I topped it up with wax and let the mould sit for a while. The result was a very nice wax pattern. The mould and filling tip from Worldtraveler worked a treat, and this was the last success I had with lost wax casting for several days. From this point on, it was a casting nightmare. First time, I placed the wax pattern back into the same wooden box, fixed from underneath with a few screws. I added plaster investment onto this, sucked out all the bubbles with my vacuum chamber and ended up with this L-shaped brick. I baked the wax out of this and decided to go for an open cast. I poured on the metal, nice and pink, but you can see it doesn't quite fill the corners. I tried tapping it with the handle of a mallet and this did seem to help, but the finished results, even after a lot of grinding, still left a disappointing finish on the lettering. On my second attempt, I decided to go for a closed cast. I constructed the wax and bottom half of the flask in the same way as you've already seen. Then I added a wax feeder and some wax sprue vents. A little cardboard shuttering around the sides held back the plaster long enough for it to set, and I ended up with an even larger L-shaped brick. I poured in the metal and noticed straight away that one of the vents had failed. Sure enough, after a dunk in the bucket, I could see this failure and it was reflected in the lettering. My third attempt was much the same as the second. The only real difference was the fact that I'd run out of expensive casting investment, so I had to finish off with regular plaster of Paris. The pour was interesting though. In yet another YouTube first, I was able to set fire to plaster. That's quite an achievement there. Once more a dunk in the bucket revealed horrible lettering. Now my fourth attempt was a complete experiment. I wondered what would happen if I approached lost wax casting as if it were lost foam casting. To give the wax a sporting chance, I hollowed out as much of the underside as I could. Then I made some foam gates and hollowed these out as well. They fixed easily into place with wax. As you've seen me do with lost foam casting, I filled the bottom flask with green sand, compacted this to a nice level surface and placed the wax on top of this. I added the upper flask and partly covered it with more green sand. Then I added a couple of plaster feeders to allow a good feed and plenty of ventilation. I compacted this down but forgot to poke spoke holes, so you can guess where this one's going. The pour went, well, it was entertaining at least. A short lull, then a plume of smoke and fire. If you look carefully through the flames, you can see the metal bubbling with gas. The reveal wasn't very exciting. It looked like something had melted in the heat, rather than something that had been forged from heat. My fifth attempt was a complete loss. I constructed this strange looking wax setup, which fitted nicely inside a tall plastic bottle. I filled it with plaster investment, burnt out the wax, and then dropped the damn thing. So we'll never know how that one would have gone. I had no hair left to pull out by this stage, but I somehow summoned enough resolve to have a sixth go. I went with a horizontal setup, and if you look carefully, the wax pattern is tilted slightly to ease wax burnout and aid venting. 2 large vents and 1 small vent on the number 2 all got covered in a plaster investment brick. I kept this as hot as I could with bits of fire brick and a blanket of sand, then I poured in the metal. Again, it was obvious that the smallest vent, the one on the lettering, had failed. No more small vents for me. The dip in the bucket was exciting. The flask was horribly cracked and I couldn't grip it properly, so it fell in with a fair bit of energy. But it was fun to watch and it separated the plaster from the metal almost instantly. Again, this wasn't perfect. There was certainly some flaws there, but parts of the casting were beautifully detailed. If you look carefully, you can see the original tool marks from the 3D print. The lettering was nicely formed but badly pitted. However, there was some scope for grinding these down, and I needed a victory no matter how small. 3 hours of sanding finally revealed the letters, and a little paint helped to set these off. It's not perfect and it is a little pitted, but it doesn't look too bad, and lost wax casting is still obviously a work in progress for me. I need a separate oven or a larger foundry, both of which need time and money thrown at them, and neither of which I've got a lot of right now. So if you know anybody with a spare kiln, let me know. I hope you enjoyed this comedy of errors, guys, and if you did, please like it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and look out for my other videos on my YouTube channel. Take care, guys, and thanks for watching.